Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Today, we're going to be looking at, in fact, I like to start with the basics, which is the true cause of design heal itself. And we know that because yourself, it will heal. But it'll only heal yourself or heal ourselves if you give it the right conditions. And most people are familiar that if you yourself, you got to clean it. And you got to hold those pieces of skin and tissue together so that it will heal. So the body will heal itself if you give it the right conditions, but then the million-dollar question arises, well, why are so many people sick? Because that same healing power that you see in a cut or a bruise, it's all through the body. And there are two main systems today. There are two main theories, and one is the gene theory and one is the germ theory. So in this first lecture this morning, we're going to be looking at the gene theory of disease. Do genes cause disease? And in the second, we're going to be looking at the germ theory. Do germs cause disease? I call them the two Gs. We're going to have a look at the true role of genes. We're going to look at, do they cause disease? What is their role in the body? In 1953, it made headlines in the newspaper. The headline said, "Secret of life had been discovered." So what caused this headline, "Secret of life had been discovered"? Two scientists, Watson and Crookes, had been able to unravel the DNA. And the DNA is the genetic code inside every cell. And we're going to be going inside the cell quite a lot this week because I call the inside workings of the cell the CBD, Central Business District, the human body. Because when you understand how the cell works, then you understand why people get sick. And you'll also begin to understand how we can bring the healing process so that people will be well. And right inside the nucleus of the cell is the DNA. And the DNA is the genetic code that determines the colour of our eyes, the colour of our hair, height. My father died at 92. His mother died at 99. And at 92, he didn't have a lot of grey hair. And my mother died at 51 and she didn't have grey hair. So I'm one of 5 children and we don't have grey hair. It's in the genes. Whereas my husband, he's a couple of years younger than me, he's white because his mother was white and his father was white by the age of 50. Nothing we can do can change the colour of our hair unless you, of course, dye. But guess what happens a month later? your original hair colour's coming through. Nothing we can do, or nothing I can do, can change the colour of my skin, can change my height. And because it seems, and of course we know that's true, but it seems like a tiny little step to say nothing I can do can change that my mother died a cripple in a wheelchair at 51 with rheumatoid arthritis, and so will I. But you've noticed that I'm not dead and I'm not a cripple in a wheelchair and I'm way past 51. Because genetics loads the gun, but it is lifestyle that pulls the trigger. So we're all born with loaded guns. We've come to a time on planet Earth where, especially for the last 100 years, we've been exposed to so many environmental poisons. There are so many factors that can come in to affect the genes. In fact, one writer stated that parents are the genetic engineers of their children. So our lifestyle habits before we conceive have a lot to do with the gene pool that we're. So they're able to pull the DNA out. And when it's pulled out, it's about 2 meters long. And I'm sure we've all seen illustrations of the DNA, 23 chromosomes from our mother, 23 chromosomes from our father, and there's a huge amount of information in this DNA. In fact, if you were to gather all the information that's in this DNA, put it into paperback books on top of one another, it would go to the moon and back a few times. I can hardly get my mind around that information. And inside every cell, there's the DNA. And in that DNA, no matter where the cell is, it's got all the information on how to remake us. We have 100 trillion cells in the body. We have 25 trillion blood cells. The red blood cells don't have a nucleus DNA. The red blood cells are made in the bone marrow. So the 75 trillion other cells, whether it be skin cell, bone cell, pancreatic cell, brain cell, it has the DNA and it's constantly reproducing itself according to the pattern, according to the formula. What's the DNA made up of? The outside strands are made up of polysaccharides. Sounds like a complicated word, but it actually isn't. Polysaccharides just means many sugars. And everything we eat is made up of many sugars. The crosswood bands is made up of amino acids. And amino acids is a breakdown from the protein that we eat. So my amino acids came from my nuts that I ate this morning. And it's all glued together by minerals. Minerals is the glue that holds us together. And the highest source of minerals is your vegetables. Vegetables are high in fibre, high in minerals, low in sugars. Whereas fruit is high in fibre, but it's high in sugars, lower in minerals. And as we go through the presentations today, you will why that's important regarding our health. You'll also see it regarding when we look at diabetes later in the week. So we're food that we eat. Even DNA is made up of the food that we eat. Hippocrates, father of medicine, 400 BC, he said, let food be your medicine, medicine be your food. And he didn't know what I've just shown, that our very DNA is made up of the food that we are eating. And there are little enzymes that are constantly running up and down, healing any little glitches in the DNA. But if you're not supplying the very nutrients that those enzymes are made of, can you see even then the healing of the DNA is hard to happen. We're constantly being remade. We've got new eye cells every 1 to 2 days. We've got new cells that line our gastrointestinal tract every 3 to 5 days. We've got a new skin every month, new liver every 6 weeks, new bone, constantly made according to the pattern, according to the formula. So if that is true, why don't we heal? If we're constantly being remade, why aren't we better? It's a reasonable question, isn't it? So one of the reasons we're not being remade is because something has happened to the formula. I spoke to a man last week and he had a bit of metal go in his eye. He didn't deal with it straight away. And because the eye cells are remade every 1 to 2 days, you know what happens? It grows over it. Do you know, we had a guy doing some work up at our old property. We're an hour from town. We used to be 2 hours from town on our property way out in the bush. We had a guy with a bit of metal cut in his eye. He was drilling something. And someone had a bright idea. So I tell everyone this, magnet. He just put a magnet up near the eye and it just pulled the metal out of the eye. There's another little piece of information to have in your bag of tricks. How easy is that compared to going to a hospital, waiting room? Oh, I don't know about you, but I don't want anyone cutting into my eyeball. So we're constantly being remade according to the formula, according to the pattern. The problem is damage to the DNA. So what causes damage to the DNA? Well, to know what causes damage to the DNA, I want to first show you how the new cell is made. So DNA cannot leave the nucleus of the cell. So a photocopy is made. Yes, please turn your phones off. So DNA cannot leave. It can be pulled out, but it's connected. So it makes a photocopy. Did you know that in your cell you've got a photocopy machine?
Could you back up to prior to that? I missed what you were saying.
Okay, so how's the new cell made? It's remade according to the formula, according to the cannot leave. And so a photocopy is made. And that's what RNA is. It's a photocopy of the information to make a new cell. But what's incredible about our body, if this is a cell lining the gut, and all the information is in there, how to make new cells all through the body, the only information that's released is the information for the gut. And it comes down to a little section in the cell called ribosome. And ribosome is the little factory where the new cell is made. And so RNA comes with the information. It's like the formula, the pattern, the plans. So Michael have 4 daughters and 4 sons. And our sons are all what we call tradies, tradesmen. We've got some land, some tilers, we've got some builders, some carpenters. But before any job, what do they got to do first? They've got to have a plan. They've got to have a pattern. And before the new cell can be made, we've got to have the pattern to it. And that's what's in the DNA. And the reason why the headlines said Secret of Life had been discovered is because they thought now that we've unraveled the DNA, all we have to do is change it in a few areas and everyone will be well. Are we all well? No, because there's far more to the equation than that. And so looking at how the new cell is made, a photocopy comes down, which is RNA, comes into the little factory where the new cell is made, which is ribosome. And the first brick goes down. I'm going to explain it like building a brick wall. And the first brick maybe is methionine. And then the next brick goes down. See, these are all amino acids. Maybe it's phenylalanine. Then the next brick comes down. That maybe is tyrosine. Maybe the next brick is lysine. Can you see how these all fit into each other like jigsaw? Incredible body we live in. And then every 3 to 5 days, out pops a new, let's say, gastrointestinal tract cell. So what's happening with syndrome? What's with Crohn's disease, colitis? How come they don't heal, let's say, in 2 weeks? We're constantly being remade. Let me show you what happens. So photocopies made, RNA comes down to ribosome, the new cell starts to be made, maybe phenylalanine is there. Actually, I think the first one was methionine. Ready for the next one, but there's a piece of information missing. What amino acid goes in there? The piece of information is missing. There's damage in the DNA. The body's not quite sure what it's to do now, and there's a rogue cell. What's this rogue cell? This rogue cell is a breakdown from environmental poison. I can't believe how many chemicals are in what people are washing their with, what people are washing their dishes with. Many are sick through ignorance, not realising. Well, the ad on the television said it was all right. Have you learnt not to trust that? So now we're up to tyrosine. Tyrosine comes along, but where does it fit? It didn't fit very well. And now we're up to lysine, and oh no, the person's protein deficient. Maybe they're eating sufficient protein, but they don't have enough hydrochloric acid to break. And we'll look at that later in the week. And so so what happens now? Another rogue cell comes along and pokes itself where it really doesn't fit very well. And every 3 to 5 days, out pops a new irritable bowel syndrome cell. One of the reasons people aren't healing is because of damaged DNA. But aren't there little enzymes that are constantly healing any little damage? Yes, there are. But if the person is not nutrients required, can you see they're not even there? It's like my sons. We brought them up that when they do a job, they do it very, very well. So they're excellent tradesmen. So let's say we ask them to do an extension on our house. And they come, they've got their tools, but say, what's going on? And they say, but where's the building materials? We forgot that, or we couldn't afford that. Can you see that even the builders on the planet can't build unless they've got building material? We live in an incredible body with a very ability to heal us. But if we don't supply the basic building materials, we can't heal. So it's not only lack of building materials, it's also damage in the DNA. And for some people, there's damage in a few areas. So what I want to look at now is what causes the damage. 92% of DNA damage, the research is showing, 92% is caused by a mineral deficiency. So how could we be mineral deficient? 40 years ago, we didn't know what kale was. We didn't know what rocket was. Notice all these greens are coming along. When I was a little girl growing up in Australia, we had lettuce. I think that's about the only green we had, lettuce. And even then, Mum threw the dark green outside, just had the sweet core. But if you noticed in the last 15 years, now we can have cos lettuce. We can have those cos hearts using all those dark green leafies. The reason I mention dark green leafies is because that's the highest source of minerals, is dark green leafy vegetables. We should be eating dark green leafy vegetables every day. And if you don't eat dark green leafy vegetables every day, you really should have a dose of green barley. I don't know about you, I'd rather have a nice big delicious salad with a lemon and olive oil and Celtic salt and crushed garlic dressing. So not only are people not eating enough greens, enough vegetables, vegetables are the high source of minerals, dark green kingdom, but we've got to have a look at the way they're grown. In his book, The Calcium, Thompson, he shows that 50 years ago, there was twice as much minerals in the soil as there is today. And if the soil's deficient, then the plant's deficient. And if the plant's deficient, the person that eats that plant will be deficient. And it's not only the deficiency in the soil, because of the deficiency in the soil, because in and if I grow a tomato, then when that crop's finished, I never put another crop in until I fed the soil. Because that tomato plant has taken nutrients out of the soil to produce the tomato. But it takes certain nutrients out that the beetroot's not going to take out. So I always alternate a top crop, and then when that's harvested, I feed the soil, then I'll put a root crop in. It might be beetroot, it might be carrot, potatoes. So alternating, that's how we should garden. But there are farmers today that do the same again and again and again. And what they do, because it takes time to grow organically, it takes time to feed the soil. So there's something called superphosphate. I say superphosphate produces show ponies of vegetables, looks good, doesn't taste much good. Have you ever eaten a strawberry straight off the plant? The taste, when you eat a strawberry straight off the plant, ideally organic, the flavour is intense. Do you know what you're tasting? You're tasting minerals. When I was in New Zealand, I stayed on an organic farm. I was doing meetings every night, and they grow sweet potato. In New Zealand, they call it kumara. And every day we had sweet potato chips. You call them French fries, or they do it in the oven. Deep purple, beautiful. But the reason I'm telling you this is out the front yard, out the front door of the house, there was this huge apple tree with these huge apples. So every morning, just before breakfast, I would walk out, I would pick an apple and I'd say, "Thank you, Father in heaven," and bite it. Did I wash it? No need to wash it. I wash it if it's been sprayed. I wash it if it's got manure on it. I wash it if it's got dirt on it. But do you know what I'm getting? I'm getting traces of B12, because B12 is an airborne bacteria. But the flavour was just incredible. It was just this burst of flavour. What am I tasting? Minerals. Have you ever picked an apple up from the shop? You bite it, and if you were blind, you wouldn't even know what you were eating. This has got no flavour because the soils are deficient, and the superphosphate produces the show ponies of vegetables. What's a show pony of fruit and vegetables? Looks good, doesn't taste very good. But there's more. Because soil's deficient and the plant's deficient, all the bugs attack that plant. Isn't that an interesting thing? What plant do the bugs attack? The weak plant, the mineral deficient plant. In my garden one day I had these cauliflowers, and I don't know if you've ever grown cauliflowers, they've got these huge leaves. We're in the garden, and my friend looked at the garden. There were little white butterflies, you know, and we know what they do. They lay the caterpillars, and they said, "Why aren't they eating your cauliflowers?" I said, "I don't know," but they don't. I actually do know. Because I fed the soil so well, that plant is so well fed, so well nourished, it resists the bugs. So it takes a lot of work and a lot of money to set up an organic garden, but once you've got it running, once you're feeding the soil, it actually ends up being cheaper. It's like this organic farmer that did our program. They do dairy and they also do chooks. You call them chickens. We call babies chickens and the adults chooks. So if you're driving in Australia and you see a fast food shop and it says baked chook, you know what it is. So that's what we call it, chook. So he's got a chook farm. And he said that, I'm 44. He said when I was 16 we went organic. He said, "Did you know that we never get the vet anymore?" He said every 2 or 3 weeks we had to call the vet because the cow's having trouble birthing the calf. He said we never call the vet anymore. We used to spend $2,000 easily every 6 months on the vet. He said we don't have a vet bill anymore. Isn't that interesting? The cows are so well nourished because the grass that they eat is so rich. In fact, he has this one paddock. You call it a field, yeah? We call it a paddock. He has this one paddock where he cleans out the dairy every day and dumps the manure and the hay there, and he's got these tractors that just turn it round and round and round, and he's making compost on his other paddocks. And I'm looking at his paddocks and they're dark green. And then over the fence and over the railway line, the other paddocks, they're brown. But his soil is so well fed that the grass that the cows are eating is so high in minerals, meaning that their bodies are running so well, they birth easy because their cells are nourished. This is their muscle cells, this is their bone cells. Now, what does that tell you about women birthing today? You know, birth is actually a very natural process. And 3 weeks ago, my son Peter delivered his third child, his son, at home in their family bed. How lovely. Birth is such a natural process, but you've got to look after this body. You've got to supply the building materials so that it runs well. So many people today are sick and they're not healing because of mineral deficiency. That's why organically grown fruits and vegetables are so important. And I'm very when I'm in America, you have Trader Joe's, Sprout, Whole Foods. We don't have shops like that. And you can get organic toilet paper, you can get toothpaste, you can get organic potatoes. I tell people in Australia, you know what they've got in America? They've got these shops. So it's not hard. Yes, it's more expensive, but remember the farmer. He's not spending money on the vet anymore. And you won't be spending money on what? Your vet. I had to go to the doctor to have my ears checked because they were blocked. I'd been duck diving in the sea in Fiji, and then I flew, so pressure. And this was about 6 years ago. And I said to the doctor, just have a look in the ear. I just had to choose one because I don't have a doctor. And there's this young woman, she's about 40. So she said, yeah, it's a bit blocked up. What are you doing? Hot coconut oil and soda, peroxide, hydrogen peroxide. She said, come back in a week and we'll syringe it. That'll soften it. And she said, when did you have your last blood test? I said, oh, no, I don't do that. She said, your last pap smear? I said, oh, no. Your mammogram? No. She said, can I take your blood pressure? I said, oh, if you like. Perfect. She said, you're very different to the last 65-year-old I saw because I invest in this body so that it works well. She said, can I do a blood test on you? I said, oh, if you like. She said, well, come back tomorrow morning at 7:30 and go to pathology. And I said, you don't know where I live. I live an hour out of town, so I didn't even have that. So you see, I don't spend any money on that. But you know where I spend money on? Organic food, food that's been grown properly, so that I'm giving the building materials so that it will work well. Not only are the soils deficient, not only do the plants be sprayed, here we've got another one, chemicals, because the plants are so weak that the bugs attack them. Yeah. Chemicals on the plant. Let me give you a comparison. One organic tomato will give 9 times the iron of a conventionally grown tomato. So look at what organic food is giving you, it's actually not more expensive, is it? It's very reasonable. So I want to go back to the mineral deficiency. Something else is causing mineral deficiency, and that is stimulants. And these stimulants are leaching the minerals. So what are the stimulants? Caffeine. We call it Australia's darling. And when I'm in the airport and look around, I think it's a darling. What's a darling? Something they love. I was in Los Angeles one year, had to get off the escalator, but I could hardly get off because there's this huge lineup at 7 o'clock in the morning. Where are they lining up to? Starbucks Cafe. And they're not coming away with 8-ounce coffees. They're coming away with it looks like 16-ounce coffees. It's early morning. And then the flight attendants come, and then the pilots come, and what have they all got in their hand? They've got these little tops now with a little hole in it so they can just sip, sip, sip. Caffeine. People say, do you drink coffee, Barbara? I say, no, I just watch the people suffer. Misty Mountain Health Retreat. People suffer more coming off coffee than any other drug. And there's a book called Caffeine Blues. And he says his subheading is Wake Up to the Dangers of America's #1 drug. So I know it's dangerous because I just watched. One lady had 1 cup of coffee a day and she couldn't even get out of bed by Monday night. She was vomiting, she had headaches. Ooh. I said to her, what's your reason for coming when we first consulted? She said, oh, I'm here to support my husband because he had prostate cancer. And I didn't want to come because I didn't want to give up my 3 best friends. I said, what are your 3 best friends? She said, refined sugar, caffeine, and cheese. At the end of the week, I said, do you still call them your best friends? I said, I wouldn't call them my best friends. Someone says, how can we enjoy our week the most? I said, start easing off the coffee. Start easing off the coffee so you can enjoy every moment. 2 girls retreat, let's just let our hair down. They had every chocolate, every coffee, every sugar. Well, they for hours. In fact, going to give them their juice, a hand had come out from underneath the blankets. If you're a coffee drinker, don't stop or you'll be suffering. So what can you do? If you're having 3 cups of coffee a day, start having 3 half cups a day. Then go to 3/3 cups a day. Then go to 3/4 cups a day, and then go to 2/4 cups. See that? If you do that, you can get off your coffee without any pain or suffering. I think if someone wanted to conquer the main towns in Australia and America, all they have to do is stop the coffee. You'd have a nation crippled. And when someone's in a terrible pain with their head, what is it? Oh, do what you want, do what you want. Just get rid of this pain. So caffeine disrupts the neurotransmitters in the brain. And because it disrupts the neurotransmitters in the brain, there's an adapt. So the body attempts, and then the person stops the coffee, body, you get flooded with the neurotransmitters that causes the pain. Caffeine causes a disruption in the neurotransmitters in the brain. So you can have a couple, maybe it's a young lady, she's having a cup of coffee, maybe she's having a chocolate in the afternoon, maybe her new husband is having a couple of Coca-Colas a day and cup of coffee in the morning. They can give birth to a baby that has a tendency to hyperactivity or attention deficit syndrome because of the gene pool that they're giving to their baby. Now, they don't tell you that on the coffee, do they? And it's not the odd day it happens, it's day after day after day after week after week after month after month after month that the neurotransmitters are being disrupted to the point where they start to cause a compromise in the gene neurotransmitter in the brain. But not only that, not only does it cause damage in the DNA, caffeine also leaches minerals, particularly calcium and magnesium. Those two minerals are vital for the proper functioning of the heart. So a deficiency in calcium and magnesium can contribute to high blood pressure. A leaching of calcium and magnesium is weakening the bones because that's where our supply is. What also causes a leaching of minerals is refined sugar. There's nothing wrong with a sugar cane, but if you wanted to eat sugar cane, it's going to take you about half an hour to eat 2 inches. And there's 1 metre of sugar cane for 1 teaspoon of sugar. And Coca-Cola has 10 teaspoons of sugar. What's that, 10 metres of sugar cane? No wonder it's also called a highly addictive drug. And how many, like your teas, your coffees, your Coca-Cola, I think you have Dr. Pepper, your chocolates, how many of those are a combination of these two? Then you've got a double whammy. More step. Me recently, she said, she's a science teacher, she said 7,000 chemicals in the tobacco. It doesn't taste so bad, and the cigarette doesn't go when it's in the ashtray. Stop smoking, and then they're eating candies all day long. That's because they don't realise that they not only became addicted to the nicotine, but they also became addicted to the sugar. On one of the long flights, I think my last flight was 18 hours from Australia to Dallas, the man next to me, he coughed a lot and he just ate lollies the whole time. And I thought, smoker. The cough because of the damage done to the lungs and the sugar. We're getting children born today with less alveoli in their lungs because they are born to smoking parents. One girl said, I stopped smoking when I fell pregnant. I said, well done, because your baby will get more oxygen. Done tests on women where they've tested their extremities with 1 puff of the cigarette and no blood reaches their fingers for that split second that they have that cigarette. So I said, your baby will be stronger because of the oxygen it gets. But the problem is the damage was done to the DNA before you even conceived. Now, if you're feeling very sad right now because you've done everything wrong, I've got some good news. The body can heal. We live in an incredible piece of machinery that has the ability to regenerate. That's the good news. I've had some mothers start beating themselves and they find these things are what they've done to their kids. I said, stop beating yourself up. You did not know. Many are sick through ignorance. But I said, today's the first day of the rest of your life. Now you can start to bring healing in the body. Another stimulant that's causing damage to the DNA is alcohol. We're getting children born today with fetal alcohol syndrome to parents. And there are some doctors that are telling people drinks a week is good. Red wine's high in antioxidants. Well, Roundup's 99% water. Are we going to drink Roundup? See, it's the alcohol. The alcohol is a toxin. It was 15 years ago that the Australian Health Department released this statement. They said there is no safe dose of alcohol. That's quite something coming from the Australian Health Department. It's a neurotoxin. So the children being born with fetal alcohol syndrome to parents that have 2 drinks a week, that alcohol damaging the DNA and directly compromise the development of the brain cells. Chemicals. We've got to get the chemicals out. Most people after these lectures, they go home with the magnifying glass straight to the laundry cupboard and have a look at what's in your laundry detergent. Have a look at what's in your washing detergent. It's not hard to know now. You just Google the name. Just Google the name and there you will see it. And Trader Joe's, you know, shops like this, they have alternatives. My daughter had her washing machine front loader and the washing, you know, most people use too much laundry detergent. It wrecks the washing machine. These washing machines are so efficient, you could wash your clothes with water. Did you hear that? Because it's being pummeled and span and now what did they do in the old days? A couple of hundred, the islander down by the creek, they're just beating the clothes on the rock and you go through their little villages and there's these beautiful white sheets and in the sun, no soap. Now if we had a man who's digging in the garden, it's a hot sunny day and he's perspiring profusely and he's got grime, slime all over him, yeah, a bit of soap's good. Do I use soap? I do, but I use biodegradable and I use about a quarter what they suggest. So even though your biodegradable detergents are more expensive, the good news is you only need about a quarter of what they say. So last year I was staying in a house and I went to wash clothes front loader and I looked at all the laundry detergents. Oh, they're nasty. So I thought, oh, I'll just wash the clothes in water. So I washed the clothes in water and I did something that I find a lot of people in America don't do. Put on the clothesline. Because you know what sun does? It purifies. It cleanses. And at the end of the day, I smelt my clothes and they smelt beautiful. And they just been washed. And really, I'm not digging in the garden. It's just my, my body waste that's coming out every day. And we've all got body waste coming out. Just smell your clothes at the end of the day. Look at the white collar at the end of the day. That's another amazing process we're going to be looking at. I think we're looking at that tomorrow, the detoxification and the organs of elimination that our body has. So please, seriously assess exposure, little by little, like the dripping taps on a stone. I said once, 1 drop on a stone, there's no dent. But 50 drops later, my husband pulled me aside later and he said, 5,000 drops later. My husband's he's the mathematician and I've got to be right. That's over weeks and months and years. One man who attended our program, he said, I wash his big orange beard, orange curly hair. He said, I wash my hair, my body, my clothes, sodium bicarbonate. He said, I can buy 20 kilos for $20. That's cheap. Washing powder that you buy, do you know it's mostly sodium bicarbonate? And if you want them to smell nice, just put drops of lavender essential oil in. And when you're cleaning your bathroom, sodium bicarbonate. White vinegar is pretty good too. And if you want it to be really potent, mix them together. You get a fizzer. So you can save a lot of money by eliminating the chemicals out of your home. One lady said to my daughter, she's very, very sick. I said, what's happened? Oh, she's a student, but she's been getting money cleaning. And the cleaning products are making us so sick. They're so toxic. I said to her, well, this is what I do. In Australia, we've got a paste. It's called Gumption. It's just sodium bicarbonate paste. You buy it and you scrub your shower and everything with it. I said, if I were her, I'd get sodium bicarbonate, Gumption and white vinegar and maybe a little bottle of essential oil so that when she's finished cleaning the bathroom, she just puts a couple of drops on the cloth, wipes the whole bathroom down. So when the lady or the man comes in, they go, oh, nice, because we are sensory people. And she was a bit worried that the boss wouldn't be happy. And I said, offer to supply it yourself. It's cheap. The essential oil's not cheap, but that'll last months and months. And her daughter was worried about losing a job. I said, well, she's not even going to be able to do a job if she doesn't get rid of those chemicals. We've had some very sick cleaners attend our program, some very sick hairdressers, some very sick printers, farmers, because of the chemical exposure. And sometimes we don't see them till 40 years after spraying DDT. And at the end of the day, their clothes are wet with DDT. That has an effect. That has an effect. It builds up. So please, seriously, your chemical, the biggest chemical company in the world, you know what it's named? It's the pharmaceutical company. That's what drugs are. Drugs are chemicals. There are some drugs that can be stopped immediately. There are some drugs that have to be, especially your mind-altering medication, as in panic attack and depression, and cortisone, your steroid drugs. They must not be stopped. They have to be eased off. But once you start giving the body the right conditions and it starts to get strong and it starts to work a little bit better, then the medication can be eased off. We had one lady attend our program. She had stomach cancer. She was on heavy doses of morphine. We didn't touch the morphine. Someone's in serious pain and they've got serious cancer, you leave her. And then we discovered she hadn't opened her bowels for 6 days. So we started to get everything working well. And guess what happened to her levels? Levels came right down. So then she could use the morphine right down. And by the end of the week, she was off morphine. That's how you do it. What also damages the DNA is, and we call, and it's used extensively, is monosodium glutamate. Causes the nerve cells on the tongue to overfire, and when they overfire, the food tastes fantastic. That's a worry, isn't it? Do you know what that means? Bad, rotten food would taste nice. Scary. Be careful, they're giving it different names today. It's called natural flavour enhancer. That almost sounds healthy, doesn't it? That's why I saw a lady in the supermarket one day and she had a big wire around her neck and a magnifying glass this big. She's looking at it. And don't you just about have to have that? Because the print that actually tells exactly what's in it is often so small. Why do they make it so small? They don't want you to know what's in it. I gave a 2-little word called if. The body will heal itself if you give it the right conditions. And there are some things must stop. And the 1-letter word is I. I am the one that chooses what goes into my body and what does not go into my body. God's government is a government of freedom, and freedom is based on free choice. No, thank you. Always smile. Because it's our God-given right to choose what we do and what we don't do with our body. And if someone says to me, but I love my coffee, I say, okay, because it's their right. I show them what it does, and most people say, I think I'm going to ease off my coffee because of what it's doing. But you can imagine by what I've just told you that when you're eating food that's organic, that's been well grown, that is high in minerals, you don't need to reach for the artificial flavours. People reach for the artificial flavours because the food's so boring, because it's so devitalised, it's got no flavour. Mould. Mould has the ability to splice into the DNA, and you see it happening in nature. You see the lichen growing on the trees. Mould is a toxic poison. The Bible, what the Bible says about mould, it says if the house is mouldy, the house has to be destroyed. If the cloth has mould in it, it has to be burnt. This is toxic stuff. As you can see, genetics may load the gun, but it's lifestyle that pulls the trigger. My mother did not know that everything she was doing was contributing to her arthritis. She never drank water. She drank lots of cups of tea. She had headache tablets every day. I'm the eldest daughter. I used to have to go down and buy her headache tablets for her. And she loved sugar. And she ate a lot of meat. And I now look at what my mum did and realise, in ignorance, absolutely, she was doing everything to contribute to that inflammatory condition in her body. And then some stress happened and she internalized it, and it just seemed to tip the scales. So I have strong inherited genes towards this. I've got a loaded gun. I'd like to say we all have. But I know how to pull the trigger and how to stop pulling the trigger. It's called epigenetics. It's a very interesting study. It's the effect of our lifestyle on our genes, that we can actually turn them on or off by what we're doing to our body. That's the good news. We not need to be subject to that. So when Angelina Jolie, that famous actress whose mother died of ovarian cancer, found that she had the gene, she had both her breasts taken off. And apparently a whole lot of other ladies followed suit. Well, she didn't have to do that. Because genetics loads the gun, it's lifestyle that pulls the trigger. Balancing the hormones, getting the body back into balance. You see, we live in a body that runs according to precision balance. But when the balance is thrown out, the body comes in with its adaptation process. Newton's third law of motion states to every action there's an equal and an opposite reaction. There is always a reason. So we've got our one-letter word, our two-letter word, there's a three-letter word. Why? We should always be asking why, because things don't just happen. So if you have a problem and you're told, oh, it's just you, you've every right to say that's very unscientific. But let's look back, because we are what we are today because of everything that's happened in our life. That's why I believe we should be our own doctor, because only you know what you've been through, only you know what your body likes and does not like. And so it's very important to listen. It's very important to listen. If you don't listen to the first whisper, the body will start screaming. And when it starts screaming, you're doing damage. So part of being your own doctor is listening. Have you ever been to a doctor who won't listen to you? Very frustrating. Don't be that doctor. And if you've got a pain, it's a knock. The body's saying, excuse me, can you do something here? And they take a painkiller. Can you see it's still knocking? You just can't hear the knock. And if it's knocking, it's starting to do damage. Many people don't know what the voices mean, but it's actually very simple. If you've got a pain or an itch or something wrong, you try some natural treatments, and if you get relief, the body's just said thank you. And if you don't get relief, then you try something else. Then you try something else until the body says, that's what I need. So even though medically symptoms are treated, but those symptoms are silenced. But naturally, when you're treating the body naturally, you go with symptoms because that's the voice. But the beauty of treating symptoms naturally is those natural things are contributing to the healing of the body. So that's a big difference. We're going to have a break now. It's 10:10, and we're going to come back at 10:30. And when we come back at 10:30, I'm going to explore the role of microorganisms in disease. We're going to look, do germs cause disease? Does mold cause disease? So we're going to explore that. So please come back at 10:30. Plenty of time for fresh air, breathing in through the nose, and to have a drink of water and a little bit of a walk round. And I'll see you at 10:30.